Hello everyone, welcome to Royals at the Ranch, episode 5, airing on Thursday, July 22nd, 2021. I am Lori with Behavior Education, and in this episode, the Royals finally arrive. A year and a half ago when I started this project, I envisioned sharing this information in the form of written articles, publications, and blogs. It only recently occurred to me that the way to get educational content out to the majority of people is through video. And so as this series progresses, you will notice that there is less and less written material and less of me lecturing and more photos and videos of the actual animals. In this particular episode, you're going to get to see some of my actual handwritten notes that I was keeping when I started this project. I was keeping extremely detailed written logs and extremely detailed written notes about this project, and I was taking very few photographs, I was taking very few videos in the beginning, and I have since changed that. I hope that you still enjoy this and find this content beneficial. Please remember to always be kind and love your animals. My day started with driving to the FedEx hub. This isn't the nearest hub to me, but it is the hub that the snakes go to immediately after they're taken off the plane. So this is the one I choose to pick them up at because it's going to reduce the time that they have to spend in transit. So I arrive as soon as they open at 9 a.m. and I go inside and pick them up. And the first one that I opened was Amunet from Disturbed Reptiles. This was sent along with her. It was some information that I had asked the breeder for. And he also had emailed me a photo of the type of living circumstances that she had prior to arrival. And as you can see here, she's just in a bin with newspaper, a water dish, and he said on that index card that she had a hide, but I didn't see one in that photo. I realized that photo wasn't of her, this is her, but he sent that to me after he had already shipped her, and he took it of a different snake. Now this is Amun, and all of his information I had already gotten electronically from TIJDSCHRIFT online, and then I was also able to go to their website and look at his lineage, which if you watched the last episode, you saw all that. This is what they got transported home in, and I always open the bags and allow them to come out on their own in their own time. Project Paradigm Day 1, March 24th, 2020. Both research subjects arrived and were set up in identical 16-inch long by 10-inch wide by 6 3/4-inch high tubs with air holes on the sides and a lid screen vent that measured 2.5 inches in diameter. They had paper towels for substrate. They had a coconut hide and a black plastic bowl hide and a 3/4-inch PVC perch along with a 6-inch long oval plastic water dish. In my notes about that day and the drive home, I indicated that the male was active and climbing on the drive home, the female hid on the drive home, and both were active for a few minutes after we arrived home. Then both perched up high in the tubs and eventually both chose a hide. The hide they chose was the black round plastic hide, and they rested in there for the day. At 23:13 hours or 11:13 p.m., the male was striking from inside the black hide, and the female was lying along the length of the tub edge up by the roof when I checked on her. I observed both snakes all night until about 4 or 5 a.m. Both snakes were exhibiting stereotypies and stress behaviors, which included edging, pacing, nose rubbing, pushing on the enclosure lid, and the male was striking at any motion outside of the tub. It's time for a behavior break. In today's behavior break, we are going to talk about stereotypies. I'm going to explain what these are and what they look like in snakes, specifically what they may look like in your royal pythons. Stereotypies are repetitive, seemingly senseless movements, postures, vocalizations, or behavior patterns. It's something that an animal does that seems meaningless to us, and we might ask ourselves, why do they keep doing that behavior? If you think back to very, very old style zoo settings where animals were kept in cages with bars or wire mesh and concrete floors, imagine seeing those tigers and wolves or bears pacing back and forth at the front of the enclosure. Or imagine ungulates under human care today like horses, and they sway back and forth if they're kept in a stall, or they may pace a fence line, or toss their head repeatedly for no reason. At least it seems like there's no reason to us. These are stereotypies. What do these look like in snakes? Well, you may see this in snakes in the form of pacing, which is where they're usually at the doors, or if it's a top opening enclosure, at the top, and they're moving back and forth constantly and repeatedly for a long period of time. You may see edging, which is where the snake is going over all of the edges of the enclosure. So they're going into all the corners, they're going into the roof, they're going into the doors and the back and the sides, and they're pushing or rubbing their body against it. They're going through all the edges of the enclosure and touching it with their body, and they're doing this repeatedly. You may see nose rubbing, which is where they're just rubbing their face or their nose on objects in the enclosure or on the enclosure walls or roof or floor. And you may see pushing with their nose or even their whole head, where they're pushing at the enclosure top or they're pushing at the enclosure doors. And animals normally will exhibit stereotypical behaviors when they're unable to perform species-typical natural behaviors in the environment they're in. And so they look to these stereotypies in order to burn off this excess energy and in order to fill that void that is left when they can't perform their natural behaviors. Stereotypies in Python Regius are going to look the same as in other snake species. Royal pythons are going to likely exhibit these stereotypical behaviors at night or when they're naturally awake. So if you're only watching your royal python during the daytime when it would be normal for them to sleep or rest, you are not likely going to see any stereotypical behaviors exhibited. It's going to happen at night when the snake is active and alert and when they would normally be naturally hunting or foraging, roaming or exploring, searching for resources. It's likely going to stop if you open the enclosure and the animal has an opportunity to come out if they're feeling relaxed and comfortable about that, or they have an opportunity to sit on the enclosure threshold knowing that they have the opportunity to come out. It may also stop if you're observing them and they're nervous around you or they don't feel comfortable around you. So they may stop doing the stereotypies and divert to their freeze-hide response or escape and avoidance behavior where they try to get away and hide somewhere within the enclosure. Or they may coil up and then get into that S shape and strike or hiss. It just depends on what the normal stress response or fear behavior is for your royal. Usually it's to freeze-hide. So those are some circumstances when they may be exhibiting stereotypies. You're watching them during the night, you see them doing these things, and you either open the enclosure and they stop, or you walk up to the enclosure and they stop because the animal is now in that freeze-hide mode. Tub. When I checked on both of them the next day, so day 2, March 25th, 2020, they were both in hides. The female was in the coconut hide and the male was in the black plastic hide. At around 10:30 in the morning, I checked on them and both had flooded their tubs. They had wrecked everything, which indicated to me that the stress behaviors and the stereotypies I had observed while I was awake and watching them continued after I had gone to bed. It was distressful for me to watch the two snakes exhibiting stereotypies and behaviors that indicated they were distressed in their current environments. I am not going to allow the animals to be distressed or exhibit stereotypies, which I was pretty sure I could mitigate just for the sake of research. I ended up moving them into a chondro tub, and all of the stereotypies and the stress behaviors that I was observing ceased immediately. During my observation period on night 2, I didn't see any stereotypies exhibited. I didn't see any stress behaviors exhibited that indicated the snakes were in distress. I just saw normal activity during the time when they would be normally active and awake. Next time in episode 6, we'll pick up right where we left off, and I'll talk in detail about these chondro tubs and the behavior changes I saw immediately upon moving the snakes into them.